music, horror, art, politics, badassery. Welcome to Society 13.
Welcome to Prog-Watch with your one and only host who is the most, Prog-Squatch.
All right, and with that little opening salvo, I begin my own prog rock revolution. I am Big Rouse, the Prog-Squatch, the host who is the most. Now you might be wondering, hey, what's that all about, Prog-Squatch? Well, let me tell you. Basically, I'm about 6 feet 8 inches tall, and I weigh about 300 pounds, and I am definitely hairier than the average dude. And on top of that, you remember those Jack Link's Sasquatch commercials a few years back? You know, the ones where, Sasquatch was just minding his own business and some douchebags came along and started messing with him. Like, that's a really bright idea. And then, Sasquatch would throw a boulder and sink their canoe or something like that. Well, I was always rooting for Sasquatch in those commercials. I guess being a big hairy guy, I kind of identified with the other big hairy guy, so I've kind of adopted that as my moniker. And as far as the Prog-Watch, the whole prog thing goes, well, I've been loving this kind of music for 25 or 30 years at least. And I think it's the best kind of music. Regardless of the whims of the radio, this kind of music's been percolating in the background, in the underground, for at least 40 years. Go back to the 60s and 70s, groups like Yes, ELP, King Crimson, Jethro Tull, Genesis, the list goes on and on. But, those are all the old-time prog rock bands. What I'm aiming to do here is actually introduce you to some new prog rock bands and show you that this kind of music is still thriving today. In each episode, I'd like to introduce you to a newer band who is still making progressive rock music in today's marketplace. Hopefully I can help get some exposure for these bands and hopefully bring what I think is really quality music to people who may not otherwise find it. If you're listening to the radio, you're just not going to hear this kind of music. The radio today is controlled by a couple of really large companies all across the United States, and basically they're playing the same stuff in all the markets. They play stuff that's safe. And one of the more disturbing trends that I noticed recently was that, if you did hear a classic prog kind of song on, say, a classic rock radio station, some guy was sitting in an editing room and cutting out pieces of the song because some marketing guy is telling him that someone might change the channel if they play, the full version of Roundabout by Yes, for example. So they're hatching it out a couple of minutes here and there and offering you a diced and sliced schizophrenic jumping around version that's nothing like the real album version. I'd rather not even hear the song than hear it in that context, actually. So that kind of brings me to one of the things I wanted to set out here is kind of like the ground rules. I am going to be playing stuff here that is longer. I'm not going to edit it. I'm not going to fade it. I'm not going to offer you little snippets. This isn't going to be for the person with the short attention span. If that's what you want, you've got plenty of places where you can listen to that all over the radio. Now I'm going to be serving up some tunes that they go through movements. There's instrumental passages. They have changes. They're not your standard verse, chorus, middle, verse, chorus kind of format. And those are some of the hallmarks, I think, of really good prog music and some of the things that I think define the genre. So with that being said, I'd like to introduce the first band that we're going to feature on Prog-Watch, and it's a band called Overhead, and they hail from Finland. And what you may or may not know is that the Nordic countries, Northern Europe, the UK, these places have been keeping the prog rock tradition alive for the last 30 years or so. They're real bastions of prog. It seems that people in those countries can appreciate and listen to more challenging music that's made by really talented individuals. But anyway, let's move right along with Overhead. Overhead described themselves as an indie progressive rock band with a fresh and original sound. Their first album, Zoom Anthem, was released in 2002 and was followed by a critically acclaimed Meta Epitome album in 2005. Their third album, titled And We're Not Here After All, came out in 2008. These works were released on the French label Musea. And after the third album, Overhead decided to undertake a lot of touring around Europe. They played at a lot of festivals and really gained some traction as a live act. In the meantime, they were putting in about 3 years' worth of work on their fourth album, which was released in 2012. This album saw them on a new record label, Progressive Promotion Records from Germany, and it was called Of Sun and Moon. Its lyrical themes deal with the duality of life and death, and the album has a lot of catchy melodies, dynamic beats, and music ranging from rock, pop, progressive, and metal. It's really diverse and intense. Well, we're going to back up now, and we're going to play some stuff from all four of their albums. We're going to start with Zoom Anthem and a song called Confessions of the Grim Reaper. All right, once again, that was called Confessions of the Grim Reaper, and that was from Overhead's first album, Zoomanthem. Now, obviously, I heard strains of some King Crimson and Yes in there. That song went through various movements. It had dynamics, and it had flute. And to me, I love flute in a good prog song. I'll never apologize for it. But anyway, we're going to move along here, and I'm going to play a song from their second album. The name of the album was Meta Epitome, and the name of this track is Butterflies Cry. Okay, again, that was called Butterfly's Cry from the second Overhead album called Meta Epitome. What do I like about this track? Well, it's just really symphonic in scope. There's excellent interplay between the guitar and the keyboards throughout, and the bass and drums are holding down the fort. It all comes together in a nice synergy of symphonic sound that I can really get into. At this point, I guess I would like to familiarize you with the members of Overhead. And an interesting thing happened while I was emailing back and forth with Jaakko Kettinen, who is their guitar player. I, of course, emailed them to make sure it was cool if I played the music, and they were all right with that. And I want to thank them once again for allowing me to play their stuff on this podcast. But I told Jaakko that I wasn't really good at Finnish, and I was a little apprehensive about pronouncing their names properly. So I asked him if he could direct me to some kind of an interview or something online where maybe an announcer had said their names properly. He said not really, but they weren't too concerned with how I pronounced their names as long as I was helping to get their music out over here in the United States. So anyway, I hope to be able to do that a little bit, and I hope you guys can forgive me if my pronunciation of your Finnish names is not all that hot. But anyway, on vocals and flute, we have Alex Keskitalo. The aforementioned Jaakko Kettinen plays the guitars. Tarmo Simonen is the wonderful keyboard and piano player. Jani Pilkkonen plays bass. And on the first album, we had Marcus Wallace-Vara on drums, but he was replaced from the second album on by Ville Sjöblom. Well, I hope that wasn't too bad, guys. But moving right along, I'd like to play a track from the third album. The name of the album was And We're Not Here After All. And the name of the song is To the Madness. This song is actually the second song on the album, and the first song kind of segues into it, so the beginning will be a little abrupt, but here we go. Yeah, now wasn't that a wicked little ride? Some odd turns there, got a false ending, and another one of my favorite hallmarks of prog music, the mellotron sound. Whether or not it was actually a mellotron or not, I'm not certain, but it was definitely mellotron-ish. And that's another one of those hallmark instruments that I'm not going to apologize for it. I love it. So anyway, that brings us up to the fourth studio album from Overhead, titled Of Sun and Moon. Now this album had some harder pieces on it, maybe a little more akin to Dream Theater. And that's one of the things I like about this band is that there are some places where they rock, but there are also quieter sections. So there's a lot of dynamics. And one of the things I like about prog is, to me, it's music with a kind of a why not attitude. The prog artist isn't trying to sound like everybody else on the radio. They're trying to challenge you, the listener. And to that end, you hear strange turns in the music, or bizarre sections of let's throw in this weird beat with some electronic sounds or whatever it is. That's one of the things I like about it. It's pretty unpredictable, sort of like this next track, which is called Aftermath from the fourth album, titled Of Sun and Moon.
The stars are out, the sun has almost left me, moving up and out to the sound of silence. The world gets darker, moving lost souls out to sea. Do you believe we would cast it down to the ground? But the ground wasn't all we. The cooling crust and the falling dust and the aftermath of the fire. Calling out to us is the sound of silence. The earth will quieten, satellites fall to the sea. Do you believe we would cast it down to the ground? But the ground wasn't all we found there, lost and bewildered, not too aware, locked in despair. One day we know things must end. I wish you could stay 5 years away. But the war is lost and the knowledge lost with the honor of this devoured. Still unknown to us is the sound of silence. Tries to divide past laughter with laughing now indeed. Do you believe we would cast it down to the ground? But the ground wasn't all we found there, lost and bewildered, not too aware, locked in despair. And one day we know things must end. I wish you could stay light years away. Confess before the end is done. Who decides what our promise is? I found where to weather the storm. Who am I? Am I waiting in the waves where he lay? In the end, it's not what was said or not what was done, was what had the power to dictate to us the sound of silence. The earth will quieten, satellites fall to the sea. Do you believe we would cast it down to the ground? The ground.
for the last selection today, I'd like to play an instrumental from the fourth Overhead album. This is a song called Grotte, Grotte, and it's an instrumental with a lot of interesting prog moments. So that's going to do it for this week's show. I hope you enjoyed Overhead. I think they're a pretty interesting band with a lot to offer. And I hope in some small way I help to get people here in the United States to listen to their music. And I hope you like the show, and I hope you'll tune in again. I have lots of interesting ideas for the weeks to come. For instance, I'm going to try to get on some interesting guest hosts to make things a little more interesting. We can have a little more of a banter back and forth, a little more of a discussion about prog and why we consider this music prog and why we think you should like it. I'd also like to get some band interviews on and maybe work on some visual aspects to go along with the show. And I've got lots of great bands that I've been in touch with to fill up many shows for many weeks to come. So I hope you'll tune in again next time. In the meantime, this is your host, the Prog-Squatch, and rest assured that I will be wandering the woods of the world, beating the bushes, and digging in the dirt to bring the best prog home for you.